Hi, and welcome to Around the House with Steve O'Brien. I'm your host, Steve O'Brien, and we'll be here today talking another project around the home. Today's project will be a shed. We're doing some work around the house today, and this happens to be the project we're working on today. I've been in carpentry for about 40 years. I've done general carpentry, finished carpentry, woodworking. So my years of experience, I've learned a few things, and as every year I learn something different. If you'd like to comment on the show, maybe you have a tip, feel free to email us. We will be interjecting our email address periodically through the show. Please feel free to contact us. Let us know what you think of the show. Anything that you might want us to talk about in up and coming shows, we'd be happy to look into doing that. But for today we're going to be fixing a door that we had on this shed that was pretty rotted, and some trim work and some clapboards. And we're going to walk you through the steps to each of these simple, basic principles of a shed, which also can apply to a home. We use the same products basically that we use on the home, but we're going to not be as critical of certain things because it is a shed. So we don't have to be weather tight or any of that stuff. We just want to keep the rain out, the moisture to a certain extent. We just have to prime things properly and install them properly. It's pretty simple, and like I say, you have a front row seat. So sit tight and join us today. We're going to go through a few things, and you got a front row seat. So stay tuned, and we'll show you how to go through this. Now here's the door that we took off the shed. As you can see, really some bad rot here. I'm pulling it away. Some mold, and in that corner also pretty rotten. Now, this is the bottom of the door, and you'll notice the rot only seems to be at the bottom. And the reason for that is, whenever you make a door, these are called stiles, these vertical pieces, and these are called rails. Now, this door was framed out, and these look nice. They look nice, but what they are is they're a catch-all for moisture. The water runs down the face of the door, and it sits on top here, and it has nowhere to go. Eventually, what happens is it'll work itself into the wood, and it will, over time, it will create rot. So the best tip I can give you today, and I will show you later, is to alleviate this trim around the door and just leave as flat a surface as you can without any cross pieces to catch the rainwater. Now, this door came out of this opening, and what we're going to do today is we're going to put a new door in place, which we made in our shop. And what we're going to do is we're going to fit the door. We have to put the hinges on it and mount the door, and then we have to put another piece of trim up here. The reason we left this trim off, as you'll see, is the trim we'll bring the trim after we hang the door. This is the hinge side. The hinges will be on this side. So this side governs where we're going to come on this side. And once the door is hanging, we can bring the trim piece over to the door as close as we want. And then we just put our clapboards in between, and we'll be all set. Now here's the door that we made in our shop that's going to replace that door that you just seen. What I used was a tongue and groove. They call it a tongue and groove V-groove pine, which you can pick up at any lumberyard. It's relatively inexpensive, but the problem with this pine is it's got a lot of knots in it. And what you do is, after you put it together, you prime the knots with a good primer, Kills or Bins. And that'll keep the knots from bleeding through the paint. And then you apply 2 coats, which in this case I applied 2 coats of a latex exterior paint. So now, getting back to how this door is constructed, as you can see, this is the outside of the door. This will face the elements. The water hits it, runs down, gone. There's no place for it to get caught. All my bats, we call them battens, my battens are on the inside. As you can see, these will be on the inside, where the other door, these were on the outside. So they caught all the water. So keeping them on the inside is the way to go, okay? So now, what I also did, now I don't know if we can see this on camera, but what I did was, when I measured the door for the height, I cut the bottom at a slight bevel. So what happens is when the water runs down the bottom to the bottom, it drips off the point. If you keep that square, the water will wick under it and draw up into it. So if you cut this at a slight bevel, the water will always drip right from the furthest point and it won't go back any further. So just keep that in mind if you're making any doors up for a shed or a garage or any little outside project you might have. Okay, and now we're going to show you how to attach the hardware to the newly built door. And what I have to show you is, anytime you have a hinge like this, which you can pick up at most of your hardware stores, this is an exterior hinge, and it's got a decorative look to it, as you can see, and it wasn't too expensive, so this would be a nice thing to buy if you were doing an outside shed for a door. Now, one main thing to remember when you're putting your hinges, as you can see, this hinge is already set in place. It's not fastened yet, but to gauge how far the hinge goes in, all you do is you put the hinge at a 90 degree like that. You flap it over like 90 degrees. So I'll show you on this piece of wood, just like that. And that tells you where your hinge is going to be located across the door. So now I've got the hinge where I want to locate it, and you want to make sure, we showed you the back side of the door. We have battens behind the door. You want to make sure the hinge is over the batten so you get optimum screw into as much wood as you can. Now this is a fairly light door, so we're only going to use 2 hinges today. Now what I recommend first is just pre-drill the holes, and when you pre-drill the holes, use a bit that's slightly smaller than the screw. These screws will go through pine very easy. You don't want to make too big of a hole, but it's a pilot hole, and it will help the screw go in without stripping the screw out. Now, we're going to put the drill on slow speed. Don't use a high speed on a screw like this because you might strip it out or you might snap it off. So you go slow like that, and then as you get near the end, just kind of hit the trigger a couple times. You'll feel it. It'll get tight. If you go too tight, it's going to strip on you. There you go. One more. And this one will be ready. There you go. And now that hinge is ready for action. Okay, now we've brought the door over to our shed opening, and I've installed the door. I haven't fastened it yet. Now, what I've done here, I've put some shims at the bottom to hold me off the threshold. We have to leave a slight gap at the bottom for the door to, obviously to open and close, you have to have a gap at the bottom. And then at the top, now you can see we took that top piece of pine out because we can adjust that so that our gap across the top is even. Even though this is a shed, there's a lot of things that aren't level and square and plumb, but we can tweak it to make it look somewhat decent. Okay, so now our next step is going to be, we've got it pretty much where we want it, and now what I got to do now is I got to fasten it, and we can see how it operates. Okay. As you can see, we've finished securing our hinges, top and bottom. And when you secure your hinges and you're adjusting your door, leave a gap here, 1/8 of an inch, no more than 1/4 of an inch, but you should leave a gap between your finished trim and the door itself. That gives you plenty of clearance for opening and closing, and any expansion. The door might swell a little bit, you'll be fine. Now, I want to explain something else here that we did, was we put these temporary, these are temporary stops that we put in to hold the door from falling through so we could secure it. Now these will come off, and what will eventually go in its place is we'll take and we'll trim this whole inside out with some finished pine, and eventually we'll put a weather stripping on that all the way around. But for now, we put these temporary stops in temporarily until we get the door where we want it, we get the trim on, and all the hardware on the door. So that's why you see these pieces here. They're just temporary. Now don't forget, you're watching Around the House with Steve O'Brien. Any comments, questions you might have, feel free to give us an email, finishdimensions@yahoo.com, and we'll certainly put them on file. Maybe we'll answer them in an up-and-coming show, but feel free to comment what you think of the show, and we'd really appreciate that. Now you see, the door is fastened where we want it, but you'll see this piece of trim is left off, and I'm going to show you why. See the gap here? There's a rather large gap. The reason we left that trim off is because we can adjust our trim to bring that gap as close as we want to the door. We want to leave about 1/8 of an inch, again, to about 1/4 of an inch gap between the door and the side trim. I'm going to show you now what that looks like. And it butts to the top piece just like so. And again, there's our gap, which I'm going to nail it up right now. I'm very happy with that. And you work your way right down. You work your way right down to the bottom. But now, what I want to stress too, when you get to the threshold, don't go any further than below the threshold, because this will be cut off later. When we bring the stairs in, we'll cut this off where the stairs come in to meet the building. So we leave these loose at the bottom, below the threshold. Just remember that. Now, what we have now is a nice space here that we can measure, and we'll take a quick measure to make sure we're somewhat parallel to our corner board. Okay. Beautiful. It's all the same. So that means we can cut our clapboard all one piece, one length, and it'll save a lot of time, rather than if something's really out of plumb, you'd have to cut pieces a little different. So these work out really well. So that's why we put this piece on last, so we can keep the gap to the door. Now what we're going to show you too is how we attach the latch. So that's the catch goes on this trim piece. The latch goes on the door, and I'll show you now. This is the latch we're using, which it's pretty simple. Again, all hardware stores carry these, and what we do is we drill some carriage bolts through, and you want these holes to be the same size so the bolt slips through. And one other thing I want to mention is on this, when you'll drill for your latch, again, go through your center batten so you're getting a lot of support. Okay, don't go through just 3/4. Try to go through the centerpiece. So that's all critical when you lay this out. Make sure your battens are pretty much where you want your hinges and you want your latch in the center. So now we got that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to drill for our bolts. I've already marked the holes out. Okay, we might have to hit these through with a hammer. That's okay. And you line up your latch like so. And these holes are a little small. I don't have a bigger bit with me, so what I'll do is I'll ream those out. That will usually work. You ream them out. Doesn't have to look pretty. Okay, that should work a lot better. Now we're ready to insert our bolts. Again, we're going to tap them in with the hammer. Actually, I have that upside down. We'll flip it around, and now that can be locked. Actually, okay, I'm going to do it that way, like that. And we'll take that and move that over, like that. Okay, now we can latch that. I got to bolt it in. We have a couple of washers, a couple of nuts here. We're going to tighten that on right now before we go too far, because that's what happens. You end up losing things if you don't do them when you're there. So let's do that now. We'll bolt that on. The bolts can be cut off later. I'd suggest cutting them off later because you'll never get the nut on there if you cut it off now before you put the nut on it. So put the nuts on first, and you can even leave them sticking out like that, but people will get their clothes caught on them. It's not going to be a good thing. There might be a little buildup on the end from the driving it through the wood. Once you get going, you'll be fine. There we go. Okay, now we can hand tighten them up. Okay, that's about as far as I want to go on that for now. Now we can put our latch on, and then we'll be ready to close the door for the night. Now, remember when you do this, very simple. Keep the latch in that position so it's almost in the lock position, and then when you put the latch on, the catch will line up right over that bolt, just like so. And it's just pretty simple. So now, eventually what I'll do is I'll get some stainless steel or some black, nice black painted screws. These are a little bit rusty, but they'll work for now. And I'm going to use a number 2 screw bit. Okay. Position it over like that. And just get your screw started. Okay, and then you get the other one. Leave it, don't tighten it all the way yet. And then you put your second screw in. Make sure everything's lined up good. Make sure it looks somewhat straight. There you go. There you have it. Now we can keep that door shut. Open it up. Latch it, put a lock through there, we're good to go. Now we've made some great progress on our shed today. We've got our door hung, we've got our trim around the door, and we're at the point now where we're ready to fill in the remaining clapboards here. Like I said earlier, if you can keep the distance between the two, the corner board and the trim piece parallel, one cut on your clapboards, all the same. What you do, go over to the saw, make one cut and try it. Try it in there. Slide it all the way down. If it fits all the way down, you know it's going to work. You use that as your pattern. Write a P on it, all right, pat, P-A-T. And then you take that piece and you make all your other small pieces from that piece. Now, one very important thing I want to mention too is these are man-made clapboards. As you can see, they made what they call these it's called OSB, which stands for Oriented Strand Board. They used to make subflooring for house construction out of this, and I think they still do. It's got all kinds of resins and pretty good glue in it, so this will last for many, many years. And I picked these up and they've got a wood grain texture also. It looks like a real clapboard. I picked these up it was for a 16-foot length. You can only buy them 16-foot long. It was $7 a piece. you can't even touch that with a real clapboard. So this is an economical way to get the clapboard look and not the expense. So you can make your shed look nice. You don't want to spend a lot of money. That's the way to go. But one critical thing we got to do is you always have to prime the ends. Even if it was red cedar, I would suggest this. Now, what I'm using today is, this is a product here that you paint on, or you can spray it. Spraying is a lot easier, and I use this for spraying. But being as it's so windy today, I prefer to use the paintbrush and apply it that way. It's less, it doesn't get in the air and all over the place. So you got two choices: the spray on, which is easier, or you can do it by brush. And I'm going to show you now the easiest way to do these is to line them all up, just like that. Get them on a flat surface, get the ends pretty even, and then just go to town with the brush. In this case, I have a small brush, so we'll do the best we can with, I'm gonna have to put this up here so I don't have to bend down so much, and we can go crazy. It doesn't have to look pretty because you're gonna come back and you're gonna paint these anyways, but this primes the ends, because once I put these in, the ends are gonna be like a sponge if the water gets in there, and at least we got some protection. But what you have to do after you put these in, and I'll show you, is we have to use a caulking between the trim and the clapboard, as I'll show you. Okay, now that end is pretty well done. And now what I'm going to do is turn these right around, and we can do the other end. You can even put these up while these are wet. It doesn't matter. As long as you get some on there, that's all that matters. You don't have to be fussy. Again, if I had a wider brush, it would be nice, but a small brush is good too. Okay, now, and don't do this on your concrete patio unless you put a drop cloth down, or in like my case, I'm doing it on the grass, so it won't hurt anything. All right, so we're almost done priming these things. As you can see, they're all done, okay? So now we're ready to install these at any point now. And I'm going to show you though, my next thing I want to show you is we have to make some marks to transfer on the corner board where these actually go. We have to copy what we have on the side so it looks good. We'll show you in a minute. Now as you can see, what I'm doing on the corner board is I'm transferring marks from where our white cedar shingles, the bottoms of our white cedar shingles around the corner, so that the bottoms of our clapboards will be at the same height. If you don't do that and they're not the same height, when you stand back and look at the corner, you'll see two different heights and it looks terrible. So very simple to do. You just transfer it from the shingle bottom across and then across, and that's where your bottom of your clapboard will be, right at those marks, and that'll line up perfectly with these white cedars on the other side, so it'll look like a real professional job. Okay, I think we're ready to start putting on some clapboards now. We're going to start at the bottom. Now, what I'm going to show you is when you start at the bottom, whether it be white cedars, clapboards, you have to remember when you put a clapboard on, the clapboards, they overlap like so. But you remember the very bottom clapboard has no clapboard to rest against, so you have to keep that half-inch projection. So what I'm doing to do that is I'm going to put a piece of half-inch plywood, which I just happen to have kicking around, on the very bottom, like so. And you'll see in a minute here how this goes on. I'm just going to tack it with a nail, and then we'll go from there. And we can cut off any of this roofing paper later on that hangs down below. Don't worry about that. Okay, now that's that. Now, remember, the first clapboard, we want to keep the bottom even with the bottom of the corner board, because that's where this bottom row over here is. So that'll get us started. And what we're going to do is hold it just like that. Now don't worry about anything over here being short. This is going to be a platform for a steer, so we don't have to worry about the length of this trim piece here. Now on these clapboards, I want to pre-drill these. These are a little bit harder than red cedar, so you might want to pre-drill these. They're just a little easier if you pre-drill them. And you can have somebody go ahead and drill all those ahead of you if you have a helper. I'm using 6-penny stainless steel ring nails. You can use a box nail, but they sometimes will rust. I prefer to use a stainless steel nail. Anytime I do outside work from now on, I use stainless steel. The ring nails are good because they hold. Okay, number one's done. Now, like I say, you can go ahead, we've got about a 1-inch overlap. So when you're drilling your holes, maybe go up about a 1/2 inch. Just like that. You can pre-drill them before you put them up. If you have a helper, even better. You have them pre-drill them before you do it, and that'll get you going even faster. And then you just follow your line all the way up. You don't have to level these because it's such a small span. You're not going to go out of level too much. As you can see, pre-drilling makes all the difference. It just makes it so much easier. And I'm not waiting for the primer to dry. Time won't allow that, so I might get a little bit of primer on my hands, but that's okay. But if you have the time, prime these up and maybe do something else while the primer's drying. That'll work good. Okay. Now these are different colors. It's just they came from a different bundle, but it doesn't matter. It's only a primer. We're going to paint these. We're going to paint them gray anyway, so disregard the color for now. Okay, and that's about as high as I can reach without using a ladder. And one more nail. All right. Okay, now, the only thing we have left to do to these, and we won't do it now, we've got to really have to wait till this primer dries, is you get right in here with a bead of, not silicone. I don't suggest silicone because it's not paintable. Paint won't adhere to it. Use a latex caulking. Paintable latex caulking works great. You put that right here where it meets the wood, rub it with your finger, seal that joint up. It's a periodic thing that you might have to do every year or two, check on it, and that'll keep that water from getting in there even further. So there you have it. We've been waiting to get to this for some time, and I'm glad we're able to share it with you. So now, don't forget, you're watching Around the House with Steve O'Brien, and we'll be having weekly shows on home repair, home improvement, different things around the house. So again, if you have any comments, questions, anything you want to show us that maybe you're doing around the home, feel free to email us at finisheddimensions@yahoo.com. And I hope we have some help with you today. If you have any questions, you're doing a shed project, email me if you have a question. More than happy to answer that for you. So again, till next time, take care, get something done around the house, and we'll see you on the next show.